Because of my background in television, I do a lot of television around it. I have some of my campers come in and they cook with me on TV to show what they're learning and to show kind of how the camp has impacted them. And so it's always nice because I say it's one thing to hear an executive director talk about a program. It's a whole other thing to hear the participants talk about it and how it's changed their lives and affected their lives. And so I really do love when we get to incorporate them into all of our press and media opportunities.
This is Associations Thrive, the podcast celebrating successful associations and their leaders. I'm your host, Joanna Pineda, CEO and Chief Troublemaker at Matrix Group International. Listen in as top association executives tell all, revealing the creative and innovative ways they're increasing membership, generating revenue, nurturing engagement, and reimagining their organizations. By the way, if you've launched a new initiative, created new member services, or updated your governance structure and are seeing great results, I want to hear your story, and so do my listeners. I'd love to have you as a guest. Go to podcast.matrixgroup.net and apply to be on Associations Thrive. Now let's dive into this week's show. Today, I'm speaking with Catherine De Orio, Executive Director of the Foundation for Culinary Arts. Catherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Catherine, tell us about the foundation.
Well, we've been around since 2008. So for a minute, we just celebrated our 15-year anniversary now this year. We work with underserved communities in Chicago to provide educational opportunities and educational programming to students in underserved communities. So kids that have financial need and they want to go into the culinary arts. We work to create programming that will help them do that.
So Catherine, why is the foundation needed?
In the culinary field, if you look at the upper echelons of kind of like the executive levels, so to speak, in the restaurant industry, so an executive chef or an executive sous chef, even a general manager, you don't really see any diversity there. Once in a while, it's getting a little better, but you're not really seeing that. And part of that is it's very expensive to go to culinary school. It is a long route, and it's oftentimes network-based. And like most things, who you know. So what we really strive to do is to provide the opportunities, provide the training so that our students could go on to run businesses. One of the things we find with the culinary arts is, say, you don't need a fancy degree to be in the culinary arts. To be quite honest, you don't actually even need to go to a formal culinary school. You know, you need training, but that doesn't mean you have to go to a 4-year college that has a culinary program or even a 2-year associate's degree culinary program. But then you need to have the network. You need to know who you need to go to for training. You need people who are going to accept you into a training program or into their restaurant and give you that training, right? So if you want to go a formal route, it's incredibly expensive. But we look at it and we say, we can make the introductions. We can give the training to get students into the kitchen and also introduce them to the right individuals and get them into a kitchen working. And at that point, an individual can work themselves up. You can literally start in a restaurant as a dishwasher and end up being a small business owner. There are very few jobs and occupations that allow you to do that. You know, myself, my early career, I was an attorney. That required not just my college degree, not just the entrance exams to get into law school, not just the additional years of training, and then your fees to take the bar exam, to actually license yourself. I mean, those are huge hurdles for a lot of the students that we work with. I mean, many of our students are the first in their family to go to college. And so that might not be the route for everyone. One of the other things I talk about a lot is that type of schooling is not for everybody. Not everybody learns through books. You know, I think that there was this swing away from vocational training. And I think that that's really hurt a lot of students. And to be quite honest, now we don't have a lot of people in these vocations that we need. Anything from, culinary is one, but, plumbing, electricians, all of these things. So I feel like giving training for vocational skills where somebody, that is how they learn. They learn by doing, they learn with their hands. And that's just a different style of learning and moving away from this. You have to go to college in order to have any type of career, because that for, quite a long period of time was what everybody was selling, you know?
Are you working with high school students or college students or post-high school students?
We work with high school. Our students on average about 16 years of age. So a lot of them are entering their junior year, but we do start with sophomores. Every once in a while, we'll have a freshman, but it's usually someone who has had some type of culinary training. Maybe their family, has a bakery or something. And so they've grown up in the industry. So we know we can put them into our training program and they're not going to fall behind because, for us, again, that's really important to make sure that all of our kids are being supported and they don't end up in our program and feeling like they can't keep up. We want to inspire confidence, not break it down.
Well, we got a lot to talk about with the foundation, but before we do that, let's talk about your journey, because you've got a winding journey that's quite interesting. How did you get to become executive director of the Foundation for Culinary Arts?
A quick recap of my journey. As I had said, I'm an attorney. I worked as a litigation attorney for years, and I really did not enjoy it. It's fine. It just wasn't really for me. And I really enjoyed cooking. I grew up cooking with my grandmother, and it was just something I always saw as a hobby. It wasn't something necessarily in my family that was pushed as that's a career option. It was kind of, this is just something you do on the side. So fast forward to a particularly hard day at the office, and I decided I was going to enroll in culinary school. So I did that at nights and weekends while I was still working as an attorney. And I got recruited to start doing media work. My employer was Sara Lee Corporation, back in the day, and they had hired me to be a spokesperson, a television chef for them. And so it was everything from creating recipes to doing on-air work for them. And then that just over time led me down this path into the media world. And so fast forward almost 20 years later, and many, many, many television appearances, shows. I did, a lot of work on the Today Show, Rachel Ray Show. Food Network, you name it, I'd been on it.
Wow.
But I never had my own show. And Chicago had, at the time, a show. There was an Emmy Award-winning show called Check Please. And it's a restaurant review show based here in Chicago, aired on PBS. And their host was stepping down. And there was an open call where well over 1,000 Chicagoans threw their hat in the ring in a very long public audition. And I was hired as the host for that show. So I did that show for 5 seasons and then moved on to continue to do more work. And in the interim of all of this, I was introduced to the Foundation for Culinary Arts. And so that's kind of what brought me then. I was being recruited to actually be a board member, not the executive director. And during the process of talking to them about, joining their board and being a part of it, their executive director stepped down. And they were looking for an executive director, knowing that I had a vast network in the culinary industry and also the corporate industry. They asked if I had any thoughts on someone that might be good for this position. And I said, well, send me the criteria, send me, what the requirements are for this job, and let me think about it. When I read through it, I thought, this is good for me. And it kind of worked because the job at the time was really on the academics. So it would be throughout the school year. And my shooting schedule was in summers. So, kind of started in May, ended in October. So kind of aligned with when the foundation was at its busiest. I was at my slower point filming for the show. And when I was in full gear for filming for the show, the foundation was kind of in its slow summer. We interviewed a whole slew of individuals. I think there were 17 people that were interviewed for the job. And then I was eventually hired. I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary with the organization this year. So it's worked out.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Catherine, let me ask you a question. It's a leap to go from being a media person to running a nonprofit, to running a foundation. So how do you prepare yourself from being kind of the star with people supporting you being on camera to running an organization that is fundraising, that is recruiting, that's putting on programs? What's that like?
It's interesting. It's not as different as you'd think.
Hmm.
It's still running a small business. And I ran my own kind of media consulting company. So it was a small business. So all of the basics of pitching and your accounting and marketing and everything that goes into that, I was already very familiar with for doing it for myself. A lot of the boards I sat on tended to be arts based. I had sat on the 3 Arts board here in Chicago, the Lyrics Junior board back in the day. So, like, I had experience with boards. And so, seeing that, having a training in culinary, understanding what the process is to go through culinary school, get a job in the culinary field, it kind of was this perfect mix of everything. And I have to say, of all of the things that I enjoy most, I am a process procedure person. I love figuring out, let's create something and then let's break this down and figure out what that process is. And let's figure out what the procedure is going to be and what the steps are, and then bring something to life. And that's very similar to what you do with a television show. You have your concept. What do we want to talk about? What's going to be the takeaway for our viewers? Okay, who are the players we need to put in place? What's our shooting schedule going to be? So many of these skills are very transferable. And so I always even tell, so many of my campers as they're trying to figure out their next steps in life. And I say, you should think about all the things you've done, all the experiences you have, because oftentimes that just makes you a perfect candidate for something. It puts you ahead of other candidates just because you have your unique experiences.
Well, Catherine, it's one thing to have the skills to know how to break down a project into different steps. How do you get the team organized around that process? Give us a couple tips for getting the whole team that organized and that focused on implementation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say, when you're talking about a non-for-profit, you have to have a strong mission. You have to have people that are excited by your mission, where they feel your mission makes a difference. You have to have consistency with your mission. Sometimes you'll see non-for-profits kind of keep changing, trying to follow whatever the wave is, wherever the public leaning is, they keep trying to fit into that. And I think that it's just really important. Sometimes you might be the cause du jour and sometimes you're not, but if you stay consistent, I think that you end up always at the top. You focus on doing good work and making sure that you're serving your demographic that you've set out to serve. My first thing always is just make sure your mission's strong, make sure you stay very clear and consistent, keep it simple. People want to keep adding. And as I always tell my board, nope.
Yeah.
Keep yourself focused, and that's how you're going to be good. I think that you have to be resilient. And during the pandemic, learning how to keep your team inspired during those times and continue to show them why things are even more important during those times of hardship or stress or unpredictability. Those are the moments when you have to just say, okay, we're taking some hits right now, but we know we're going to get through it. And here's how. And you make that plan so that people feel that you work with feel there's stability. So whether that's your stakeholders, like your donors, whether that's the demographic you serve or the community you serve, or that's your actual staff and board, because you as a leader are responsible for creating the stability. And then I think also it's about being adaptable, being willing to listen to voices. I have all kinds of ideas, but I'm a huge believer in collaboration. And I don't just talk to my board or just talk to other organizations or just talk to my staff. I talk to the parents of the students that I serve. I talk to the community leaders from the demographic I serve. I want to know, are we giving the students the opportunities that they actually need? I talk to chefs, restaurant owners. Are they learning the right skill set? Has that changed? And so I think it's being adaptable and being able to change as things change, because the world changes, and a lot of non-for-profits, I think, want to stay, and not non-for-profits, I think any business. You're like, oh, let's not change it. It's working. Let's just kind of keep doing what we do. And I think that you really have to learn to be adaptable and willing to change and grow each year, which is what will make your organization thrive.
Well, Catherine, let's turn to the foundation and the things that you're doing to thrive. So your signature program is called the Yes Chef Culinary Camp. So what's a culinary camp? Is it like a summer camp? Is it a weekend camp? What is it?
Yeah. So it started in 2016. It was 2 years after I started with the organization. We were only serving college students at that point. And just kind of looking at the program, I realized what was happening is we were really missing out on students that needed us a little bit more. High school students need you more because I feel like, one, we've all been in high school. It's hard. It doesn't matter how supportive your family is. It doesn't matter how many resources you have. Being a teenager is just tough. It's confusing and can be very difficult to navigate. And so originally we gave scholarships to students who were already in culinary school and just kind of helping them get through culinary school. And what we realized is those kids already understood, they've already figured out how to apply to school, how to find financial aid. And there was also a ton of resources available for kids who were already in higher education. So what we did is we kind of stepped back and said, how can we help the kids that want to do this, but they don't necessarily have the resources? And whether those are financial resources, whether those are social resources, how can we help get to the students younger and kind of get them on a career path sooner? And that is where Yes Chef Culinary Camp came about. So we partnered with Chicago Public School System. We partnered with an organization called CCAP, which is Careers Through the Culinary Arts Program. They do a lot of scholarshiping and programming in the culinary arts. They partner with organizations like ourselves who create this culinary programming, and they bring it to public school systems, not just in Chicago, but in multiple chapters across the country. And we created, at the time, one summer camp. That was how we started. We had one summer camp. I think our first year, maybe 20 kids in the summer camp. And now we've been through a pandemic and back. So we went from in-person instruction to virtual instruction during the pandemic. We're back to in-person instruction. And we have 5 camps throughout the year. So we do our week-long summer camp. It's a very intense boot camp. They basically learn the fundamentals that you will learn in your first block of culinary school, which, if you think of like a quarter or a semester in a traditional college system, first block is basically going through your first quarter of a traditional college. So they're in school from morning until evening and cooking all day, just learning all the fundamentals. And then throughout the year, we do boot camps. So those tend to be more skill focused. So for instance, we just had a pasta making camp in October, where they learn to obviously make all types of fresh pasta, sauces, and then they learn about the history of pasta, how to pair noodles with sauces. So we try to always build some type of cultural component into each of our camps. And then we have a spring baking camp, we have a holiday baking boot camp, and we have a Thanksgiving community class.
Well, Catherine, this is amazing. How do you fund these programs? Do the students pay or do they apply and then it's a scholarship? Like, who's paying for these amazing experiences?
Yeah. So these camps are free of charge for students.
Wow.
I have to say, I know I'm a little biased, but I have chefs say to me all the time, I wish this type of programming existed when I was younger and trying to figure out how to navigate my career. They're free of charge, but they have to meet our financial criteria. Once they do that, they apply. Write an essay. We want students who really want to have a career in culinary. We understand that not everybody will do that, and we don't worry about that because we look at it. One, you're still young. You're trying things out. You might not like it. Two, the culinary field is not for everyone. It is not an easy field, but it's a very rewarding field if you apply yourself. But we look at it this way. If all the camper comes out with is knowing how to feed themselves, how to make a great meal.
That's amazing already.
Right. These are transferable life skills. They're never going to go to waste.
Right.
And so we just see it as it's win-win no matter what, whatever path they choose. But we have found that, 75% of our students on average go on to culinary school or go into the field.
Oh my God. How are you tracking this?
Through metrics. So we do surveys. We're pretty good at keeping track of them. We have a really good network and really good relationship with a lot of our students' families, their instructors. So, if we're not hearing back from the student, we'll reach out to a family member. And oftentimes, they will respond or give the nudge for our campers or former campers to respond.
Catherine, a lot of the CEOs that I interview on this podcast are with trade associations or professions where they're struggling with workforce development. You've created something that is compelling, where 75% end up going into the field. So I've got a bunch of questions for you. But the first one is, how are you promoting the program so that you get the students interested?
Yes. So we work with our partner organizations. So, through CPS, we've developed a really great network with instructors in CPS, with counselors in CPS. And we really talk to them about identifying students that they see have talent because, some of the CPS programs, they do have culinary programs even within the school. And so we talk to those culinary instructors. We ask them to identify students they really think have a future in this and they can see succeeding. Because of my background in television, I do a lot of television around it. I have some of my campers come in and they cook with me on TV to show what they're learning and to show kind of how the camp has impacted them. And so it's always nice because I say it's one thing to hear an executive director talk about a program. It's a whole other thing to hear the participants talk about it and how it's changed their lives and affected their lives. And so I really do love when we get to incorporate them into all of our press and media opportunities. And then the same as any other organization, it's through word of mouth, it's through our networks. Quite frankly, now our campers, they're our best publicists.
Yes, of course.
And even their parents or guardians, even within the community, they tell friends of theirs, like, oh, you have to go to this program. It's so great. Like, it's really helped my son or daughter. So when we started, recruiting was kind of difficult because that's a whole other job. I mean,
right.
Colleges, high schools have entire departments devoted to that. And, my organization is very small. We have a board and we have 2 workers in the office. Our core staff is 2 of us. And so to add this whole element of recruiting was very daunting. But over time, we stuck with it. We figured it out. We saw what worked, what didn't work. And now we have a wait list every camp. We can't even accommodate all of the students that want to participate.
Wow.
Which is a good problem to have.
Catherine, give us a sense of scale. How many students go through your program each year?
Over 100, but it's roughly, I would say, 100.
Okay.
So what we decided is, in our early camps, we had allowed more students in them. And what we were seeing is they didn't get as much hands-on time because they'd be in a team and we would see one student that maybe wasn't as confident as another student, kind of let the confident student take over and make all the pasta or, make all of the stock or do whatever it happened to be, fabricate the chicken, and we didn't want that. What we'd found is a huge byproduct of our camp that was unexpected and amazing is that our students come out with such high levels of confidence. I mean, you just see their confidence levels increase. And I think it's because we really make sure that every student, even if they work in a team, every student has to do every single task so that they know if they look at that recipe again in their booklet that they take, their binder they take home, they know they've done every step. And so we want to make sure that they can see things through start to finish because I think that's important in any job that you should really have worked most positions. So you see how the whole functions and then you specialize maybe in an area. So we decrease the number of campers as a result. 16 to 20 campers per camp, except for our Thanksgiving camp where that's increased. We have, I think, 36 in that camp. So what we look to do is increase number of camps versus increase the number of students in each camp. We really want to make sure our students are getting true hands-on training, not just watching from afar. We always joke, none of our campers can hide. Like, we will make sure that you are going to leave our camp learning something. You are going to leave with a new skill set. And they do. And it's been amazing because, culinary camps are very interesting. They're very different than, say, an art camp where, you can have a bunch of long tables and pads of paper or canvases or clay, whatever they happen to be working with. And it's very easy to have each student have a station. When you work in the culinary field, there's only so many of those. So your location is also kind of what dictates how many students can comfortably be working in that space. And like I said, I want every student to do each task. And if you only have 20 burners, well, then you basically have 20 campers. So space dictates part of it, but also our desire to ensure that these kids have true hands-on training.
Catherine, how does one support your program? Because all of this sounds amazing. The hands-on experience that you're giving them, just the mentoring, the hand-holding, the confidence building. How does one support you?
There's a lot of ways. One of the things I didn't talk about, but I do think this is one of the best ways. At the end of each camp, each camper takes home an equipment kit. So that kit includes all of the utensils they need to practice what they've learned in that camp.
Amazing.
So if they come to a baking camp, they're going to get, whether it's the saucepans, baking pans, cutting boards, bench scrapers, small utensils, you name it. Pasta camp, they get a pasta machine, they get a stock pot. They're all very tailored to exactly what they've learned. And in the culinary field, it's not seeing it once and doing it once. It's repetition, right? That's what's going to make you a great chef. And that's what's going to make you valuable in a kitchen. And our students, quite frankly, don't have the money to go out and buy kitchen equipment. It's expensive. And so we want to make sure that they're set up so when they leave our camps, that they can continue to practice, continue to pay it forward. So one of the ways to help our organization, you can sponsor a camper, you can sponsor a camp, but you can sponsor one of those equipment kits. And so I feel like that's like a nice entry way to get in there because those kits are anywhere from $150 to $250, depending which camp it is. And so it's a nice way to kind of get in and know that your donation is going specifically to help a student. And I just think you make a donation of $200 for an equipment kit, and think about that. You are giving a student the tools to continue to practice their vocation. And not just that, they end up helping cook for their families at home. The family benefits from having this. So there is this ripple effect that goes so far beyond what is happening in our camps and with our students learning their skill set. I mean, they end up cooking at home. Our parents say, I can't believe that, my child was able to make this. Now they make meals at home and they become part of that ecosystem of like helping. So, if it's a single parent home and the kids are responsible for the household chores, cooking dinner, all of those things, this is a way that they're able to help their family. And that's pretty amazing. And also again, this way that you really see this confidence build with students. So donations, but like I said, sponsoring a camper, sponsoring an equipment kit. You can sponsor a meal kit for our Thanksgiving community class where you actually pay for a meal kit that we send home after a cooking class on how to make Thanksgiving dinner. Each of the participants are sent home then with all of the fixings for a family of 10. So that includes our turkey, roasting pan, and then all of the ingredients for the sides for them to recreate that meal on Thanksgiving Day for their family.
The best Thanksgiving dinner ever.
Right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
Our camp is built on 3 pillars. So the foundation, we say it's culinary, community, and culture. The culinary is self-explanatory, right? We're teaching them culinary skills. But the community aspect, we are, one, building a community of like-minded peers. Our students come from all over the Chicagoland area. And so if they don't have anyone in their neighborhood or their school that is interested in cooking and maybe not really supportive or thinks it's strange that they want to do that, they've now been introduced to kids from all over Chicago that want to do exactly what they want to do. So they now have this peer network, and it's so cute because they all stay in touch with each other. They're amazing. Then we also want to pay that forward into their community at large. So their family. So at the end of each camp, they bring food home for their family after every camp so that they can, again, show their family what they've made, what they've baked. So whether it's bringing home pasta for dinner the night of pasta camp, or they're bringing home baked goods after our holiday baking camp, the Thanksgiving camp, all of the fixings for Thanksgiving dinner, it helps to build that community, not just with the students, but also farther into their familial community and beyond. And then culture, we incorporate into each of our curriculums something about what they're learning. So if it's, pasta camp, they learn about the history of pasta and the influences from other culture and how it's not just Italian and where it came from, the influences of sauces regionally in Italy. In our camp during the summer, each day is based around a different culture. So they'll learn about Latin flavors in one. They'll do a whole French fish day. They do an Italian day. They do a Pan-Asian day. So they'll learn again about different flavors, different cultures. And we think that's, again, very important for each of our kids. And we allow them to share about their culture and their traditions. So again, the students learn about a culture larger than theirs. I always say food is this common thread for all of us. It might be slightly different the way we cook things or whatever, but every culture has some version of a dumpling, right? Or some version of a noodle. And it's very interesting to talk amongst one another and see see, we're not that different. We all have to eat. We all have to break bread. And so we really find it to be this common thread. And that's one of the things that I really love. And again, that builds into that community building.
Well, Catherine, we will put links in the show notes to the website and all the different ways that my listeners can support you. I want to thank you for this really fun and informative interview. I've learned so much. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for all the work to really benefit these students.
Thank you so much. We love what we're doing, and thank you for having us.
Thanks for listening to Associations Thrive. We're so glad to have you here. My personal mission and the mission of my company, Matrix Group International, is to help associations and nonprofits increase membership, generate revenue, and thrive in the digital space. I want to hear stories of how your organization is thriving in today's challenging landscape. Please apply to be on my show by going to podcast.matrixgroup.net. By the way, do you need help with a digital initiative? Maybe it's a website redesign, a new membership database, or a hybrid meeting that you're planning. I'd love to connect with you. Please visit the Matrix Group website at matrixgroup.net. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode of Associations Thrive. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star rating, post a comment, and share it with your colleagues and friends. Bye!